In the Senate today, the Senate actually passed a bill that would see the live sheep export trade phased out within 5 years and indeed banned during the northern summer, at least sales to the Middle East, because it's too hot for the livestock. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It would have to go through the House, and that's unlikely, it would seem. With me now is the Agriculture Minister, David Littleproud, for more on this and a couple of other things as well. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Now, it's passed the Senate, this phase-out of the live sheep trade. Will it at least be debated in the House?
Well, that's a matter for the Leader of the Government Business, Christopher Pyne, to make that determination. The reality is it's government policy. We will not back away from the live export of sheep and cattle from this country. That is our policy. We'll continue on that direction. The Senate's moved this, has passed this, guillotining debate on it. The reality is we're standing firm. We believe that we can do this better than anyone else in the world. If people think that they can ban it from Australia and they can put their head on a pillow at night and shut their eyes and think we've fixed animal welfare issues around the world, then they are kidding themselves. They're either naive or they're ignorant.
Well,
the reality
maybe
is, if it's not our ship, well, you know,
do they think it might help here to ban it? Because that's all they can.
Well, the reality is I've got to ask, where is their moral compass? Because if it's not our sheep, it'll be sheep and cattle from another nation that don't have the same standards, the same welfare standards that we have. And I can tell you, they'll be loaded on a ship, far worse conditions than what we have. We've got a responsibility to stay and get this right. We've got a responsibility of the world to do this right. The demand is still there, and if we don't stay and do this right, someone else will, and they'll do it wrong. So where is the moral compass of all these that want to sit there and say, let's ban it? But think about this. This will cost the economy $300 million a year and 10,000 jobs. If you think you can process all those animals here in Australia, ABARES have done the study. So for us to think we'll have this simplistic approach where we'll have meat processing factories all around the country, they are kidding themselves.
So
it doesn't stack up.
It can't be done, is that what you're saying? You can't actually process
it can't be done without a huge economic cost and cost of jobs. But you think about this also. In Northern Australia, where their production systems don't have the ability to finish off livestock to the extent we can in the south, you effectively shut Northern Australia down for the production of red meat. You destroy the livelihoods. You are doing what Labor did in 2011, destroying the livelihoods of those farming families up there that are still bearing the scars of not only financially but emotionally to what happened in 2011.
If you're so confident of that case, why not at least allow the debate in Parliament?
Well, Christopher Pyne will make that determination, I'm sure, as it's only just come through the Senate. We'll make that determination.
A couple of Liberals in the lower house, as you know, Susan Lee and Sarah Henderson, moved a private member's bill to phase out the industry as well. They say they remain of that view, but they're now in the ministry as of a couple of weeks ago. Does that mean you'd expect them to vote along government lines?
Well, they're a member of the executive. It's government policy. Expectation is they will. That is the reality. We'll expect that to happen.
And have you spoken to them about that?
No, I haven't, but I've written a letter to ask them where their position is to make sure I have clarity on that. But it's important that this industry continues on because...
So you've written to them in the last couple of weeks just to clear that up?
Only today.
Today?
Let me make it clear. What Labor's position is not only shut down the live sheep export during the summer months for the Northern Hemisphere, but the entire sheep export market. So that's all year round. They have a philosophical bent to shut the whole industry. So they are crab walking towards the cattle industry. They are coming to an industry near you. And only in the last 2 weeks...
They say they're not.
Well, hold on. I'll give you the evidence where they are. 2 weeks ago, the Labor Party in Queensland moved a motion successfully at their conference to ban the live export of all animals. They are coming to an industry and a state near you. This is crab walking.
The government, you've written today to Susan Lee and Sarah Henderson to seek an assurance they won't cross the floor. Why did you feel the need to do that?
Well, I wanted to get comfort around where their position was. I think that's only fair, and obviously I respect their passion. I really do. This is an emotional topic, and we should respect anyone that doesn't have the same view as myself or the rest of the government. That's a fair thing, and it's good to have diversity.
They're now in the ministry, aren't they?
Well, they are.
So your expectation would be they'd have to resign if they wanted to cross the floor?
Well, I don't think it'll come to that. I think I've had constructive conversations with them in the past around the conditions that I've put in place since this incident happened back at Easter, making sure that we've brought down the stocking density, we're looking at the incident mortality rates in which it's reportable, and putting independent observers, government observers, not only on sheep but on cattle. We're going to get truth and proof on these boats. We're not going to be reactive to this problem anymore. We're going to be proactive. I owe that to every farmer, but I owe it to every Australian to give them comfort. They go to bed at night and knowing we are the world's best and we will do it the best.
Just on a shifting topic to dairy, the Australian Dairy Farmers National Council has today voted 7-6, so pretty close, but voted in favour of a mandatory code of conduct for the industry. This was recommended by the ACCC a few months back. You've welcomed this. Why is it a good idea?
Well, look, we had a report by the ACCC back in April, end of April. I went to industry and I said, I want you to come back to me and tell me what you want. You don't want a Canberra solution. I want a farmer solution. I want an industry solution. I want you to lead. 3 weeks ago, I was becoming frustrated that it was getting kicked down the road. I had a gutful. Everyone was jack of it. We just wanted some action. I gave them 2 weeks. I said, either you decide, you get consensus with your industry, or I will. And proudly, they've led. With courage and dignity, they've led. They've come to this determination. It is now up to us to work with them and to work with the opposition in a bipartisan way to get a code of conduct that ticks the boxes.
What difference will it make? What'll it mean for the industry and for consumers?
Well, I think particularly more so the ACCC report indicated quite clearly there was a market imbalance between the dairy farmer and the processor. What we want to do is give confidence, particularly around the contracts, transparency of the contracts, also the flexibility of moving out in and out of the contracts, giving them the options to look at other processes. So this is just getting purity in the market. Don't want to intervene. We just want to put in place a framework where the purity
rules of the road.
Exactly.
But I mean, some of them, including the president of the Australian Dairy Products Federation, say they had a good code of practice, voluntary code of practice. They say this mandatory code will make things worse, he says, will add additional costs, cost recovery fees, penalties, will stifle investment. What do you say to it?
Well, look, what we'll be working through is an impact statement to make sure we get confidence with everybody. But we've got a philosophical view now where the industry majority, I know not every child will get a prize, make no mistake, I'm not that naive. We've got to make sure we get the best framework that supports our dairy farmers through this and give purity of market. And the dairy industry has been found through the ACCC there was not purity of a market. And my job as the Agriculture Minister to work with the Treasurer, who has remit over the ACCC and much of this legislation, is to make sure we give that framework for the dairy industry.
Will it put up the price of milk?
Look, what it'll do is put a fair marketplace where farmers, where the originators of milk will get a fair price, should start to get a fair price, but it's going to take time. That's not going to happen overnight.
But for consumers, does that mean they'll pay more if they'll pay a fairer price?
They'll pay the fair market price, as you would for wheat.
But is that more than? I mean, do you think it's too low at the moment?
Well, look, I don't think dollar milk is productive. I don't think, and while the ACCC themselves didn't find that was an impediment, I, in some facts, feel it is because it brings down those branded prices. It put pressure on the branded prices in the industry.
So what should it be? If a dollar a litre is too low.
Look, I'm not going to get into naming dollars and cents. I think the reality is
a dollar's
well, it's way too cheap, and we're seeing farmers in my own electorate. I've gone from 30, 40 dairy farmers in the electorate of Marinara alone down to 15. I've got to do
so. So would $1.10, $1.20 be fairer?
Well, I mean, I think we've got to meet more than cost of production in our farming sector.
Which is what?
Well, it depends, and this is the hard thing with dairy, is because it is geographical. And Victoria is different to New South Wales, which is different to Queensland, which is different to WA, and they are different markets in many respects as well. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all, and that makes it very complicated. And that's why we've had diversity of views within the industry itself.
But in Victoria, big dairy state, what's a fair cost of production price? Are we talking $1.20?
Look, at a farm gate, a lot less than that. Let me make it clear. But yeah. I don't have those numbers with me, and I'll take them.
But it needs to be more than $1 a litre at the supermarket.
Yeah.
Well, you in fact floated the other day the idea of a drought levy on a litre of milk, 10 cents a litre of milk. Why do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I didn't float it. I supported the Queensland Dairy Organisation in terms of them asking for that. This isn't something that we'd impose as a government. It's something that I've said that if there's leadership by the supermarkets, in fact, I went and asked the supermarkets. I took leadership role, rang the CEO of Woolworths, who said, so long as it gets back to the farm gate, he was on board. I've spoken to Aldi. They've effectively said, if you can give us confidence in the mechanism, we're on board. I've spoken to IGA. We're on board. Coles have said we're a little bit more circumspect. So there's a decision for them. We've got processes that said they will. What I've said is...
You need them all in, though.
Well, exactly. I'm not going to sit there and be the big stick of government. What I've done is asked them to do what I've asked to the Dairy Farmers Association and give me some leadership. Government can't solve everyone's problem, and I don't want to. I can't. But I want them to lead, give me the direction if they are. My job's to try and facilitate that, and that's what I'd be trying to do if they came to me with a clear direction.
You're saying it's not a government decision here, but the minister ringing around each of the supermarket chains sounds a bit like government action.
Well, that's leadership, David, I'd say. That's not action. A big stick of action would be me walking in with legislation. This isn't
so you won't do that, are you saying?
No. And this wouldn't be permanent. It can never be a permanent. This is just that there is an impurity in the marketplace for the dairy industry, and the ACCC has already seen that. They've articulated that. So we would never say that we want to see a permanent levy, but it would have to be. And in fact, one of the local retailers of IGA has, in fact, themselves brought one in only last day or two. They put 5 cents on it. So it is happening at the marketplace.
10 cents for what, 6 months, 12 months, something like that?
Well, until we can get purity of the marketplace, let these reforms, the code of conduct, come through. I need time to create an environment for that to happen in a constructive way.
Sorry, I thought this was for the drought, this money, not for the dairy industry.
Well, they coincide with one another, David, and this is an opportunity for us not only to fix in terms of where the predicament is for farmers with drought, but get long-term reform.
But would this money go to just dairy farmers?
Well, that's the intent of
okay,
where
so
the
it wouldn't go
dairy
to cattle growers and...
No. It's only going... Because there is purity of market of the cattle, the beef industry, the sheep industry, of grains. There isn't purity of the dairy industry, and that's what the ACCC themselves have said. And government shouldn't interfere in markets only if there is a need where there is market failure. And if the ACCC has said there's a market failure within the dairy industry, we've got a responsibility to act on that, and I'm glad we've got industry on board with this.
But you ringing around the supermarkets isn't intervening?
No, that's asking them what their position is and whether, if we could help facilitate it, would they be part of it? That's leadership.
All right, so just to be clear at the moment, Coles is the only holdout.
They're the ones, as I understand, that haven't come back to us. The others have all been quite positive about facilitating this on a temporary basis.
Agriculture Minister David Littleproud, good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks,
Appreciate it. All right, quick break. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.